because I was so close to deciding that dying was a better alternative to living, that I really turned the corner on my relationship to life. And once I started to see that pain and suffering and be grateful for the experience, I made incredible progress, because I looked at my pain and suffering. And once I turned it into fuel, I was able to make progress. I was able to, do all these things, create this app, change my life. And I was very motivated by that. So I'm very grateful that I had this experience because of the change in direction that I experienced. And then I also became grateful for that component of myself, because even though I went from shame to gratefulness, I went from being ashamed about who I was and what this was in my life, to being grateful that I was aware of, that place in myself, that soul, that component of me that I spent so many years running away from. Once I became grateful, and once I started to appreciate that, even as being a potentially non-optimal thing, even that as that, that personality trait, that characteristic, that feeling, being what the world today says is not good, right? I mean, especially in the United States, we really push for people to always be happy all of the time and whatever. And I don't think the modern world today has a really open balance around positive emotions and negative emotions. And I became grateful that I actually had negative emotions, because I realized that they could be used for good.
Welcome to the Gratitude Podcast on www.georgianbenta.com, where you'll hear a new story each week that will inspire more gratitude in your own life. Our mission is to inspire 100,000 people to discover how to feel gratitude and live a happy life through the amazing life stories of our successful guests and their actionable tips. And now, the host of our podcast, Georgian Benta.
Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Our guest today has had some experience with gratitude, and I believe his story is very inspiring, and I think we can all get some very interesting ideas from it. Gratitude has been a big part of his healing from depression, and he is grateful that he had to go through the pain of wanting to commit suicide and was able to overcome that, and has been using this personal experience to be more empathetic towards others and also to help people out. He has created a free app that helps people find peer and professional support. And his goal is to reduce stigma around mental health, improve help-seeking behaviors, and improve access. His name is Adam Moen, and he's here with us to talk more about his work, his story, and his experience with gratitude. Adam, welcome to the Gratitude Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So let us know a little bit more about you. I know that you've spoken publicly in a TED Talk about your story, your experience, and I would be very grateful if you would share a bit of that with our audience.
Sure. So my story really begins in, sort of middle school, high school, when I was just kind of trying to figure out who I was and what the world was. I came from a very achievement-focused school and family. So while we had a lot of support for one another, accomplishment, achievement, performance was highly valued because my parents, really wanted me to do well in life and live a life that I could have opportunity. So, we were expected to perform at school and in all activities to a very high degree, which um, I was able to do in a lot of regards. But I didn't really see the impacts of that until I got to college. I continued to excel or, try my best, which I'm very grateful for. My parents really instilled in me um, a drive, a motivation, a will, a desire to do great things. Um, but what happened was in our pursuit for that sort of um, accomplishment, we
Mm-hmm.
perhaps didn't spend a lot of time focusing on, or really allowing non, allowing non-optimal emotions. So we didn't talk a lot. I mean, we always had conversations, open and honest environment, but because of whatever reason, there's a variety of different reasons. The achievement is just one of them. But I didn't feel comfortable speaking about some of the challenges that I was going through interpersonally. So
Mm-hmm.
I never really felt like I understood who I was or what I was. Um, so in high school, I would say I would, kind of going through the motions. In college, I was still continuing to go through the motions, but now I started using drugs and alcohol to kind of as stress relief, really, and self medicating. So I had a very work hard, play hard attitude, and then I just kind of got further and further away from myself throughout this process,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I was very focused on work, and I started working at some organizations, and they were not very fulfilling, and I really questioned the direction I was going in life. So um, I lost hope. I was not excited about who I was or what I was doing, and so every day just kind of came more and more and more bleak. And this was in my early 20s, I would say. So um, one thing that some modern day suicide research says is that the brain is always looking to solve problems. And so one of my problems was that I was not feeling well. I was, you know, the example I give is 49% of my day is bad, and then 51% of my day is good, and then there's a time period when you cross over that zone in terms of like more of your day is negative and less of it is positive.
Mm-hmm.
30% is positive, 70% is negative, 20% is positive, 80% is negative, and then all of a sudden my brain started looking for ways to solve the problem. And since I wasn't telling anybody that I was feeling this way, I just started to think my only option was suicide. So had a couple very close scares with uh, near attempts, and very fortunate that I didn't. Um, but I ended up just kind of continuing to wallow, and I reached out for help just kind of in one capacity with my folks. I said, I think I could really benefit from speaking with somebody. And they were like, yeah, great. We'll get you a therapist. We'll get you supported. We love you. You're the best son ever. You're probably going through a phase, but we'll definitely help you out. So obviously, I heard you're probably going through a phase. Now, again, was told to kind of deal with it, and I did. And so things got progressively worse until finally I actually got in trouble with the law, and I had like kind of a rock bottom moment where it became very apparent that I was unable to get myself out of my own depression and suicidal ideation. And so I got home from court one day, and I had all of these documents in my car, and I walked into my parents' home, and they said, "Hey, how are you, Adam?" And I was just like, well, I'm fine, nothing out of the ordinary, whatever. And for whatever reason today, my dad decided to go out to my car and he saw this manila folder and he brought it into the house and threw it on the table and said, "Were you going to tell us about this?" And I just said no. And it was at that point that they realized that I was incapable of getting myself in a healthy place so that I was not at risk for depression and suicide. So I did start seeing a therapist. Um, and that was a huge turning point in my life. I started to just feel better. I started to talk about
Mm-hmm.
emotions. I told a couple of my close friends how I was really feeling quite sad, which is the first time I had ever even mentioned those words. And
Oh,
they immediately blurted out after, "I feel the exact same way." So then I tapped into this kind of like really common undercurrent of sadness that was going on in my immediate environment in university. Um, and I became very interested in this idea of sadness because I was seeing it on people and I had felt it myself. So I started to peel back the layers of like, what's going on here? And um, I became very interested in mental health. I became very interested in peer support. I became very interested in help seeking behaviors. Started to do research, and I changed a lot about my life because um, I had this experience with suicide and accessing therapy. And it's really changed the course of my life because I was fairly convinced that when I was gonna go into college or university and I was gonna get an internship at a Fortune 500 company and I was gonna climb the corporate ladder. And the thing I used to tell myself was that I was gonna slit throats and break necks until I was, at the top of the food chain, which is a pretty ruthless way of looking at life. And I don't know how long I would have actually lasted if I maintained that outlook. So, um, yeah, I really changed a lot about me because I had this experience.
wow. There are so many amazing things about this story and about how you managed to become interested in getting other people to be open to getting help and to um, seek help. I think it's something very important. And one thing that I find very interesting is when you talk with people, you see that others are also struggling with different things, and I think that's such an important part of us as humans. But I don't know if that's your experience, but I see it harder for us men to do that. Like it's harder for us to speak about and to talk about our feelings or about feeling sad and things of that nature, as we tend to be more competitive. Has that been your experience as well?
Very much so. There's a lot of very interesting research in the field of men and masculinity these days. It was kind of I know the field's been around for a while, but I had a very pivotal friend of mine who was actually a psychologist who specializes in men and masculinity. And we had some fascinating discussions about, men's openness to admitting when they, don't feel well. And um, it's, uh, it's very much something that I think uh, we could make a lot of progress on. I look at, you know, like rape culture was also a very big component of university, particularly in fraternities and sororities and sporting events. And so when I was going through school, all of that was really just coming to the forefront. And it was really in front of the Me Too movement. There was kind of this acknowledgement of um, harm to women, particularly around drugs and alcohol and date rape and that whole sort of thing. So I think it's really intertwined. I think men and masculinities, our inability to speak about um, emotions, our tendency is to lash out, and I think we hurt people because of that. And I decided to hurt myself as an outlet for this frustration and anger. But I think there's quite a bit of violence that uh, men do largely because of our inability to express how we're feeling. And I um, really specialize in being able to talk to other men about this issue because I feel like I went through the exact same thing of not being able to express myself, and then was able to kind of uh, feel comfortable enough with my own dysfunction that I was able to approach it in a way that wasn't detrimental, that didn't feel detrimental, that I felt more skilled. And so when I started talking to people, for me it was more about like skill building. Talking about emotions is just not something that we do very often. And
Exactly.
frankly, we spend more time, playing with the ball, shooting it in the hoop or kicking it in the back of the net, and we're pretty good at that. But we don't spend a lot of time talking about our emotions. So for me, it's not really about shame, and it shouldn't be about like, oh, you're bad because you don't talk about your emotions too. For me, I always approach it as like skill building. Like, hey, you're just like not really good at this yet because you're like a toddler learning to walk, and you can't just expect yourself to already know how to properly express emotions if you don't have that experience. And that was just what happened in my case. Is I just didn't have that experience. It was not a skill that I was comfortable with. And when I got into therapy, I realized that, like, well, I had a safe place to explore it, which is just so key, which is why I've been really interested in help seeking and advocacy, because I think that's a really appropriate forum for people to explore building this skill, which is talking about how you feel, letting some of those things that are going on in your head out, and just getting a second opinion on it.
Yeah, definitely. And I love this perspective. We we don't learn how to walk in a single day. We don't learn how to drive in a single day. We have to take time and practice and build this skill and become better at it in time. And yeah, I think it's an important part of how we deal with what's happening on the inside. And I believe that just talking about this topic, I'm sure that many of our listeners that are men definitely resonate and see that it's something that they might be going through as well. And um, for them, what would your advice be? Like, what would be the first steps?
Great question. The first step, um, for me, it really began with um, finding the right forum in which I was comfortable to start exploring those questions about how I was feeling and why I was feeling that way. Because I didn't feel comfortable talking to my friends, my family members, my teachers, my coaches. I, you know, I was too wrapped up in the idea of me needing to be successful to be
Mm.
able to say that I'm struggling interpersonally. So, a friend of mine said once, hey, you should really just think about talking to a therapist. And I kind of wrote the idea off, and it took a very long time for me to have that experience where, I was pretty much forced or but to go to therapy because of, my trouble. So, I I think asking for help is step number one. And I think, or even two, is first admitting to yourself that it's okay not to figure it out on your own. I think we have an idea that we should be very independent and we should be able to figure all of these things out on our own. And the reality is, so much interpersonal struggle. Like I was saying, we're just really not good at it. And if you want to get good at something very fast, the quickest way to do it is talk to an expert. Talk to somebody who knows what they're doing in the space, who can help you navigate. So, health coaches, therapists, peer support, mental health professionals, I think, are just such a great resource that I really advocate for, because I had a good experience. I realize there's, the medical industrial complex has its own difficulties, but I'm just a big advocate of people talking about what they're going through, and not being afraid to take the first step with people that are close to you, people that are, in these roles, in these support roles, like school counselors or offices of HR at work, or any government offices that are design, social work or something like that. I think acknowledging that you don't have to have all of the answers yourself is a really key step. And then I think the second one is to go out and try and build that support network around you that has the ability and the skills to help you build the tools. And the one thing I'd say is I got very lucky that the mental health professional I was working with was very good. We matched well. And I've seen a lot of stories of people who they go and they reach out for mental health support, and the first person they interact with, they don't get along with very well, and they get discouraged about the entire industry. And that's something I want to caution people about, because therapist client or mental health professional client fit is extremely important. So that's actually one of the reasons that we're doing what we are with my mental health support app, is to try and make it easier to match people with the appropriate mental health support professional, because that is so critical.
Exactly. I actually wanted to get to this, to the work that you're doing right now with Avalo. I think it creates a safe environment in which you can express yourself and ask for help, and I think that's such an important part of just putting it out there and letting yourself be supported anonymously. I think it's an important part, since it might be harder at first to admit it, to admit that you need some help, and to ask for it. And yeah, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about this part, how you see it.
Sure. So I found that the barrier, the barrier to entry for asking a mental health professional for support is very, very, very high in the United States. Um, you don't know what type of professional you want to talk to. You don't know how frequently. You don't know who's good. There's a lot of unknowns, and so I think there's a lot that prevents people from going to mental health professionals and saying, hey, I think I might need help. So what I've tried to do with Avalo is lower the bar around what it means to ask for help. You can download the app, it's 100% anonymous, and you can post in our forum. And we've got all these safety features in terms of blocking and flagging content and making sure it's appropriate. But you can anonymously post, nobody knows, and then you can have other Avalo peer app users and mental health professionals comment and provide peer and professional support through the application. And what this does is it starts the conversation. And that's all our goal is right now, is to start the conversation, to lower the bar around the intensity of asking for help. We want this to be a place where people feel comfortable going, oh, I just really had a bad day. I just don't feel well. I need some support, all the way to, hey, I've been really feeling suicidal for the last 6 months and I don't really know what to do. I haven't told anybody. Um, I think I might need some help. We want to, it's not a suicide hotline or response line, but what it is a place to talk about what you're experiencing with the hopes of um, making the appropriate next step. So then we have some big plans to incorporate natural language processing to improve the matching of our mental health professionals on the platform to those individuals who are experiencing certain types of mental health complications. So we want to improve the matching by using some modern technology and then creating a very safe space for that first conversation, or for people to feel comfortable opening up online.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's such an important part of even of feeling grateful and being able to be grateful. For me, it unless we are able to do something with these emotions that we are feeling and admitting that we are going through these kinds of emotions, um so what we need to do something with them first, and gratitude comes later. Gratitude can help us improve our state as well, but I don't believe in just um, like n- not admitting that there are other feelings there and just focusing on gratitude. It's really helpful to balance things out, but I don't believe in just forgetting about those things that are inside of us. And since we are at this topic, I wanted to ask you, how did gratitude help you in this process and in what you've been through?
Yeah. Again, this is gratitude is so paramount in um, the healing phase of my mental health journey. There was the first kind of, all right, I've got this blackness that I feel is in my body, on my soul, in my mind. This pain, this suffering, um, and I didn't know how to react to those feelings. So what happened was when I started building skills around how to address this particular component of my personality, which was, expressed as sadness, frustration, anger, confusion, risky behavior. When I started to um, re-establish my relationship to that, and I wasn't afraid of it, and it wasn't something I was ashamed of, I was able to, what I kind of call, turn the corner, so to speak, on um, not running away from some of the things that I may struggle with in my life, but being able to look at them in a different light, um, and being able to accept myself for the things that I do that are really great and the things that I screw up on. Um, and it was through this process of kind of re-establishing my relationship to myself, really, um, that I was able to become more empathetic. Um, I was able to see this pain on other people and use it for good. Started to volunteer with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and lead peer support groups. I started to become a community activist for mental health. Did public speaking. Did a couple TED talks. I mean, I totally changed my life for the better because of this mental health experience, and because I was suicidal, and because I was so close to deciding that dying was a better alternative to living, that I really turned the corner on my relationship to life. And once I started to see that pain and suffering and be grateful for the experience, I made incredible progress, because um, I looked at my pain and suffering, and once I turned it into fuel, um, I was able to make progress. I was able to, do all these things, create this app, change my life, and I was very motivated by that. So I'm very grateful that that I had this experience because of the change in direction that I experienced. And then I also became grateful for that component of myself, because even though I went from shame to gratefulness, I went from being ashamed about who I was and what this was in my life, to being grateful that I was aware of, that place in myself, that soul, that component of me that I spent so many years running away from. Once I became grateful, and once I started to appreciate that, even as being a potentially non-optimal thing, even that, as that, that personality trait, that characteristic, that feeling, being what the world today says is not good, right? I mean, especially in the United States, we really push for people to always be happy all of the time and whatever. And I don't think the modern world today has a really open balance around positive emotions and negative emotions. And I became grateful that I actually had negative emotions, because I realized that they could be used for good. They didn't have to be these things that were just shut in, a drawer and locked and never
Hmm.
talked about or addressed. So it opened my eyes to an entirely different kind of philosophical approach to life. And that was the pivotal moment in, like, really turning and being much more mature. And so um, gratefulness has been a huge component of my journey from a philosophical perspective. And from a tangible perspective, I got very involved in this department at the University of Minnesota where I attended, which is called the Center for Spirituality and Healing, and got into kind of Eastern philosophy and meditation and gratitude meditation. And there are actually a lot of tangible tools that gratitude can supply you as well, like loving kindness meditation, gratitude journaling, which were really pivotal in me, building that toolkit, that skill set to approach my mental and emotional health better.
This is amazing. I love how you managed to use gratitude in a healthy way, in a balanced way, and I totally feel the same, that it's very important um, to have this shift in perception when it comes to our pain, to embrace it and to appreciate the gifts that's also bringing. And another important part of what you managed to do, that I think it's amazing, is the fact that you managed to find purpose. And once we manage to find purpose and to see that it's not just us that are in pain, that are suffering one way or another, we see that there are other people that are going through something similar, and we we have the power to reach out to help them one way or another. And I think that's amazing, and it's the way we can build each other up and help each other out. And I think this is beautiful. And one of the things that I love about your app is the fact that you can see what other people are saying as well, and you don't feel like you're the only one that's going through something. You see that there are other people opening up and writing about their experience and getting some help. I think that's such an important part. When you see that there are other people going through something similar, you're able to become more aware of what's going on inside of you as well, and know that you're not alone in this. And I believe that this is one of the most important parts in actually being able to overcome a certain situation like you went through, like the one that you went through. So yeah, it's quite amazing. And another fact, another important thing about the app, it's free right now, right?
Yes, it is. It's free for end users, and since we are still in beta, it's also free for mental health professionals. So it's a great way to connect, people who are in need with those people who may have expertise in the field. And I think the point you brought up about it being it being a community and being able to see what other people post is valuable for a couple different reasons. One, you can kind of see the thought process that somebody else has that may be going through something similar to you. And two, you can also see other people who appear to approach the issue in a way that you may benefit from. So if there's a professional who is responding and you really enjoy the tone, the questions, the angle, you think that they are like, wow, I wonder how they act. You can go to their profile and we'll link to all of their resources. So you can email, call them, or visit their webpage. So, that it's very hard to ask for help, and it's very hard to know who to ask for help. And we're trying to kind of combine those things. So it's just easier for people to get on living their lives in a way that, is enjoyable. That's ultimately what it comes down to, is helping people traverse mental and emotional health challenges and not have to go through the amount of time that I went through kind of beating myself down to suicide. It was over the course of 3 or 4 years of this just slow sort of slip down this dark path. And a lot of people go further down that path and unfortunately decide to take their own lives. But we're trying to get in front of that. But it's not just for people who are suicidal. It's for people who go through breakups or whatever it is. It's for anybody who has a challenge that they're just looking for another perspective on. They're looking for somebody to provide some support and some light in their life. And I mean, it's available for everybody. You can download at avalo.app. And if you just search on the Play stores or the App Store, Avalo, Avalo, it'll be the first thing that pops up.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm really hoping that this app will be serving many people, and especially in this time when the pandemic seems to bring so much confusion and so much fear for so many people. And it's been a real pleasure having you on, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
This episode has been brought to you by yours truly. Support this podcast by purchasing the How to Experience Abundance Through Gratitude course, and you'll be going from lack to abundance in 7 weeks with easy and fun exercises. Plus, the commitment is less than 10 minutes per day. It's only $50 and you can get it on georgianbenta.com/abundance, or just visit the link in the description.